Month-end invoicing day today. This is always a manic day, so we never ever fail to have this day booked in the diary. Ever since I started here, this has always been a day that's been booked in the diary, and that has been drilled into me by our old FD. Well, I suppose he's kind of like a fractional FD now. He kind of works a day a week, but he used to drill into me literally 8-9 years ago that invoicing is the most important thing. And at the time it was like, yeah, okay. But as I've got older and as I've kind of like worked my way into the business a bit more, I've actually realised how important it actually is. I think I saw a stat recently that, I mean, I can't verify this, and I'm kind of winging this stat, I suppose, but I'm pretty sure I saw a stat that 30% of construction insolvencies are linked to cash flow problems, whether that be late payments, which I would imagine the majority of that 30% is late payments. But that just goes to show, like, nearly a third of insolvencies come down to cash flow. So, you know, I'm actually very lucky that that's been drilled into me for the last 8-9 years. And it really has rubbed off on me because I'm on the case with it, with the team as well. Like, have you invoiced this? Has this been invoiced? And then we always run through profit and losses at the end of the month as well, just to make sure, is there any extra invoice that needs to be done? Have you missed an invoice, which is very rare in our case. But it does happen. Some people do miss invoicing, and also like variations as well. Sometimes they get missed along the line and they have to get picked back up at the end. That's easier to do when you've got, you know, like end user tenants as the clients, but, you know, I suppose if your subbies working with main contractors, that's going to be a bit more difficult, but we steer clear of working with main contractors. Well, there's a few, and one of them's one of my mates, to be fair, so albeit they are a main contractor, I don't really think that counts as your traditional subcontractor main contractor relationship, but we did used to, but we never do that anymore. But yeah, just going back to the cash flow things and invoicing, you know, like the amount of people that I've spoke to on my podcast, Square Foot Stories, I've had subcontractors on there who openly admit that cash flow and, you know, doing the numbers within the accountancy within the business is overlooked a lot of the time. You often find that construction businesses tends to be the smaller ones, because as you get bigger you start employing people who specialize in it. But, you know, the smaller companies out there, they're so good at the actual work and the service side of things, but the ops and accounting side of things they do lack. So many subcontractors I've had on the podcast, and people who I speak to just in general, they openly admit that it's a problem, you know, because they've grown up being a apprentice, say, like, for instance, hypothetically speaking, a plumbing apprentice, and then they go into, you know, self-employed, and then they have a apprentice on with them, so there's a 2-man band. Then they might get another van and they might get another team on, and they're still working on the tools, but they're working relentlessly. They're doing all the quoting, they're working on the tools as well, they're doing all the project management, the sales, the BD, they're doing everything. So, you know, the invoicing usually gets left to a last minute, and that is a very common pitfall. And you can't blame them as well, because, you know, like, from an educational perspective, they've learned how to deliver the service, how to be a plumber, how to be an electrician, how to be a carpenter. But they don't get, you wouldn't get taught that early on in your business career, I suppose, if you go from apprentice into sort of like a sole trade, I suppose you could call it. One of the moments that I actually realised how important cash flow was from our perspective is we get like a double, so we pay subbies usually 14 days, which is unheard of, because I know there's subbies out there who get paid 60 or 90 days, but we pay the majority of ours 14 days, some monthly, well, suppliers obviously monthly. So sometimes we have like a triple subby run in the months. So obviously we get doubles every month, but sometimes it falls, I can't remember which month it is, but sometimes it falls, obviously it differs year on year, but it falls, sometimes we have a triple month, so a triple subby month combined with, you know, supplier month. That really is the test, because, you know, like, cash flow needs to be so tight on their months. So you can't be missing invoicing, and not only that as well, like overdue invoices as well, like chasing them down. They're so critical as well. Like, the amount of tricks that you get from people, classics, like, oh, sorry, I didn't see that invoice, can you resend it? The read receipt's on the email and you've read it, so I can resend it, but you have already read it. Or people sometimes, what we have had before, is they will wait on a final invoice, we'll invoice it, and then we won't hear anything, all snags done, everything's fine, all agreed, be invoiced, and then it comes to the invoice being overdue, and they were like, oh, there's a small problem actually which we didn't tell you about, which needs to be fixed, and once you've done that, we'll clear it. It's like, come on, man, surely we agreed all this. But yeah, anyway, ramble over. That was my opinion on cash flow in construction. Hello everybody, and
this is going to look a bit strange because the angle of the camera has flipped because I'm on my iPhone, but I am at the FIS award ceremony, the first time I've been here. Shout out to suppliers who have taken us here. I don't know how controversial it's going to be, but I just wanted to mention something about this. Like, I found out, I didn't know, it's probably naivety because it's my first time, but I found out that people who are winning the awards here have to pay for entry into the category that they're in. So I don't know how I feel about that from a recognition perspective, because it makes me think, like, are the real people who should be recognised not paying for their projects that have been entered? And I'm not discrediting anybody who's won or anything like that. I just think, like, paying to be entered into it. And then it also made me think, right, about the people who haven't paid and who are building more privately rather than publicly. Because don't get me wrong, like, this is an amazing award to win for recognition. You know, you get your photos and your videos for LinkedIn, and you'll post it and you'll rinse it and rinse it, and you know, you might get some business off the back of it, who knows. But it makes me think about the people who don't do that and build in private. Like, in the world that we live in now, where everything's public, is there something to be said for people who just build in private, who are just churning out the projects, and they don't need all this recognition? All they need is a couple of good consultants, project managers and clients who are giving them repeat business because they're doing very good work. So they don't need to be posting on LinkedIn. And you know, this might sound a little bit counterintuitive for me, because I do these videos, I post, I do the podcast, etc. I build in public in theory. But it just made me think, whilst I was out there, like, there's people out there who are building in private and are delivering in private, and they're also probably doing a similar amount of effect in terms of the business is growing. They're making an impact in the areas they want to make an impact in. But that being said, as I mentioned, I am building in public, and I do think that is the way forward for me. It's only my opinion. So I've got no disrespect to people who aren't doing this, but I do think building in public is the best going forward. I do think people will get to know you from a business development perspective and a sales perspective. Like, people think that they know who you are as a person before they even work with you. They've already brought into you, so you've lost the period of time that it takes to sell you and your business before engaging with the client. So I think it's the best thing to do personally, but spare for the people that don't, because there's something to be said about that for sure. Also, just a comment as well, it does just, like, I'm not that drunk, but it does turn into just a huge piss up of everybody in the industry, which is quite nice, because you see people that you haven't seen for a while, or you see people that you've seen on LinkedIn. I've seen that a couple of people who listen to the podcast, which is quite nice to talk about. But it's a good event. It's an amazing event people can come to, and don't get me wrong, like, I feel like this is a negative spin, but it's not supposed to be a negative spin. It's incredible that they can get recognition for the amazing schemes. Like, some of the projects that have been put up there are incredible. And, you know, working in the fair industry and knowing firsthand what goes into just delivering a project, let alone a project of prestige. So, you know, massive credit to the people who have done that.
So I was literally just sat doing a tender, right? And I've been working through it all day today. And is there any better feeling in the world when you get a phone call from a client, in this case it's a consultancy practice, saying that you won a project that you tendered for? I think I put the tender out last week or week before. It's a £400,000 project for us, which is a really, really nice sized project. But what a feeling, by the way, because whenever I do tenders and put them out, I don't know how everyone else feels, but I'm always really impatient. I always just want to hear, like, as soon as I've sent it out, I'm like, have I won it or not? But anyway, the great news came through today that we've won that job. And it's just, like I said, it's just the best feeling. Like, there's no better feeling than winning a project. You get the immediate, like, dopamine hit almost. And then, it comes down to a bit of reality where you're thinking, right, actually, we need to deliver this now. And then you get serious, but you still get the moment, don't you, when you win it? And then also just like a comment on how that client come through. So it's funny because I won it, and then I was sat with Lucy, and I was we were talking through a period of time today about, like, ideal client profiles, working through a bit of a marketing plan. And so I actually ended up telling Lucy where this client came from. And it was funny looking back on it, because it was like a couple of years ago, but it all started through them following the podcast page. And then I messaged them and just said, like, oh, hey, thanks for following the podcast page, like, what episodes were of interest, just standard chat really. And then it proceeded to, me finding out they're a consultancy practice and that we could help them with some projects if required. And then I kind of went to the office, sat down with them, ran through all the schemes that they do and the types of projects that they do. And there was definitely some alignment there, especially with our ideal customer profile, and also with the type of contractors that they want to use. So, what a combination, through them following the podcast and listening, and then through me messaging on LinkedIn. It's just so satisfying, because it's almost like it really was, like, business development at its finest for us, how we do it anyway. And also like a good sense of satisfaction that the podcast actually works, because like at the end of the day, like validation, I do like validation for the podcast. No matter how many projects I receive off the back of it, I do like the fact that it does keep coming in, because it literally solidifies the fact that it works. Even though I do know it works, it's still nice to have that validation. But anyway, on to the more boring stuff of delivering the project that we just won after the excitement of winning it. What that does mean is that it completely fills our summer work out now. So we're literally booked up for what we're now, June, July, August, September. We're booked up till probably October time, I'd say, which is massive for us, especially with the economic climate and everything that's going on. Like, some businesses don't have a lot of work on, so we're so grateful for all the work that we have on. We just want to keep trying to do a good job, keep delivering projects for clients, and hope they keep coming back, because like I said in a previous video, like, clients coming back is the most satisfying thing, because it means that we're doing a good job and the team are performing well. But yeah, anyway, excitement over for the day. That's project 1. I don't think I've done a project win video, and it literally was like, I don't know, about 10-20 minutes ago, so the excitement's still there. And I know I keep banging on about the excitement, but it is like, especially when you're working in sales and business development, there's nothing better when a deal comes in. Anyway, me over. Hello everybody, and welcome to a Saturday video. It's supposed to be a Friday video, but I'm doing it Saturday. But anyway, it doesn't matter. A couple of things I want to touch on, actually. We've had some major news in the fit out industry with Zentia going into administration that I did want to touch on, and a few other things as well, more positive. I'm trying to make this more of a positive video, because I felt like last Friday was a bit of a negative whinge about my couple of weeks, but that's the reality of it. Anyway, I won't get back into that. I did want to first touch on something major that's happened with the business, really. One of our main site managers actually retired this week. So he's just turned 70, I think. And he spent 53 years in the industry, I think. And it just made me think that is such a wealth of knowledge that is now gone from the industry. All of that knowledge that he's taken with him, that he's now unable to pass down to people who are coming into the industry. And it's almost like a point around the skill shortage in the industry, because there's so many knowledgeable older people now who are either coming to the end of their careers, and that knowledge isn't being passed on. And then another point to make on it as well is, like, it just made me think, whilst I went to site yesterday and just shook his hand, because he's done so much for me, primarily from like a technical perspective. Like, he's the person who, everyone's got this, right? Everyone's got that one person who they would ring for technical advice, whether it's like a petition makeup, or how a specific ceiling goes together, or just like workflow of trades, and and the more I reflect on it now, the more I think he was actually a really beneficial part of the business. So it's a shame that he's retiring, but he's nearly 70, so fair play. He's had a long old stint. And then it just made me think as well, like, how important people are in getting to where you want to get to, and whatever career you're in or whatever industry you're in, but specifically our industry, because you can't get anywhere, you can't get as far as you want to get to on your own. Like, you need these people around you. So like in this instance, the gentleman who's retired, like, he's allowing us to deliver better projects because he has a wealth of knowledge, and then also he's allowing other projects within the business to deliver more efficiently and more professionally, because he's passing the information on to other people onto building sites. And then also, like, you think about just people in general in your careers or industries, like, clients. Like, you can't get as far as you want to get to without clients. And then I'm quite lucky to have some people in my industry that I class as friends as well, that I can ring up and get advice from, who are running fit out businesses as well, so they can really help with specific situations. But it did make me reflect on how lucky I am to have good people around me in my industry and in the business as well, who can help me get to where I want the business to get to. And then more of a sad one as well, I suppose, is obviously the news about Zentia going under. I can't remember. The last sort of like, industry breaking news would have been ISG, when they went at, not SIG. It's because I'm thinking about suppliers because of Zentia, but formerly Armstrong. But anyway, the last groundbreaking news, I suppose, of another business going under would have been ISG, and that really shook up the industry. And I actually think this is going to as well, because this is now a supplier that's gone down. It makes you think that you're never too big, to sad things like this to happen, to go into administration. And then it made me think, like, what happens with all the projects that have been spec'd by Zentia that haven't started? I suppose that's easy enough because you can respec it, but like the projects that have been started, like installing half a ceiling of Zentia on a project, and then they go under and you can't get the material anymore. I'm sure there's excess stock you can get hold of, but That'd be difficult, wouldn't it? And then also it leads to problems further down the line. Like, think about how many ceilings in the UK have been spec'd as Zentia and have been installed in Zentia, and then trying to, like refurbish places that have got Zentia grid and trying to match in. It does create major issues just going forward on projects. But, in the interim, it's obviously sad people have lost their jobs. We can all get really caught up with, how businesses in general might be booming. And, I did a video the other day about how we won a project and I was so psyched about it. I couldn't wait. It was quite a fresh take on a project win as well. But then this type of thing makes you think about the reality of businesses, about the cash flow, about how you shouldn't really be growing too fast, because I always think about that as well. Like, should we get bigger? Should we not get bigger? And then I think this kind of puts things into perspective in terms of like the route and avenue you're going to take. But anyway, really sad news that they've gone under. We don't traditionally use Zentia, to be fair, because it's quite expensive. Unless it's specs, obviously. But if we spec, we don't tend to. We more use Rockfon. The guys prefer working on Rockfon as well, to be honest with you. But anyway, apart from that, the last couple of weeks has been the same as the previous few weeks. Intense. I thrive with it. I love it. I really do. A couple of more project wins, smaller ones as well. A couple of jobs that are very, very close to getting over the line. I'm in the last couple of weeks of some projects. Like furniture installs, cleaning, snagging, silicone, and etc., etc. The final stages of projects, where it all comes together. Everything, like project. Isn't it funny that you can do a 4 or 5 month project, and I swear, like in terms of visually, nothing really looks like it's happened for a couple of 3 months. Then all of a sudden you click your fingers and everything just comes together. That's what's so cool when clients say they get concerned about progress because they can't see physically the progress on site, because like when you're in the first fix elements, a lot of it's behind partition walls and ceilings, etc., so you can't actually see the amount of work that's gone in. And then you always reassure them that it will all come together in a click of a fingers, and when it does, they always say, wow, you did say that, to be fair. I suppose it's the same for anybody. But anyway, that's the week out, or 2 weeks out I should say, because these are bi-weekly, and I'll catch you on the next one.